Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jeevanam Kavibiriditam Kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Srimadatam Bhuvi Ye Bhurida Janaha. In the previous class, we saw how Sri Ramakrishna is continuing his conversation with the sub-judge, who asks him a question whether God has created all men or all people equal. So Sri Ramakrishna says, how can that be possible? You see, there's so much of difference between one person and the other person, depending on the three gunas, depending on the preponderance of the three gunas which he possesses. So we saw how the three gunas, different characteristics, are responsible for creating different kinds of character. So there is the Rajoguna, there is Tamoguna, and there is Sattva-guna. Tamogunic person is, as Sri Ramakrishna describes him, he is inert, he is lazy, he is not able to do anything, he is negative in his whole approach, he is destructive. Tamasic people are normally destructive. So he is jealous. All the negative qualities which are normally associated with people is a result of the preponderance of tamoguna in their character, in their personality. And human personality or prakriti, all human beings as well as animals as well as plants and other inanimate objects, everything is made of these three gunas according to Sankhya philosophy. And these three gunas decide the nature of the being, whether it is a living being or whether it is an animal, whether it's a human being. So preponderance of sattva in somebody makes that person a very wise person, discriminative person, a spiritual person. At least he is a sadhaka. He has come to the level of sadhaka, and he can aspire to reach higher and higher levels depending on the how much the proportion of sattva increases in him. There will be some tamas, there will be some rajas in him. Rajas, on the other hand, makes a person very active, as Sri Ramakrishna said. So in sadhana also we find these three types of sadhakas. There is a tamasic sadhaka who does lot of austerities, who does rituals, who perhaps does not follow the shastras but tries to get some kind of spiritual benefit without exerting much. Whereas the Rajasic person makes a big show of what spiritual practices he does. Sri Ramakrishna said perhaps he has a golden, a japamala, which the thread of which is made of gold, and he wears very flashy dresses, showing that he is a very spiritual or a religious person, tries to visit all the temples, and his intention of practicing religion is to get some name and fame and to show to the world that he is a religious person. And he is also active and he earns a lot of wealth, money, and is a very worldly type of person. But the tamasic person does not even have the capacity to earn money or to earn a living properly. So he resorts to all sorts of negative things in life. So that is how human characteristics are defined or determined by the preponderance of certain gunas. Certain gunas means one of these three gunas. Suppose tamas prevails, then he becomes a lazy person. He either tries to steal money and tries to earn money the easier way without working hard for it. A Rajasic person would not mind working hard to earn his own money, earn a living, and enjoy the world at the same time. That is fine. But he does not resort to unfair means. Whereas a tamasic person because of the preponderance of evil or negative qualities in him, his tendency is to uh, either be inactive, or even if it is through inaction also, he is deeply desirous of gaining wealth by hook or crook. He is jealous, he is envious of other people. So all the characteristics associated with bad people. A predominantly tamasic person. Of course, he also has a little bit of rajas. Nobody can be fully tamasic, and he has a little bit of sattva. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna always believed that however low a person might be, because of the preponderance of either of these three gunas, he can resort, if he worships bhakti with the worships God with bhakti, worships his Ishta with bhakti, if he takes a right decision, that's why Gita says, even if an evil person decides to worship me, he has taken a right decision, because the very gunas which dragged him down and made him a worldly person, if it is directed towards God, it can make him a spiritual person. It can slowly result in converting those gunas into rajasic, and then finally you become sattvic, and then realize the goal of your life. So gunas by themselves are have, though they have a tendency to make you more and more worldly, but if they are directed to God, for example, Sri Ramakrishna used to say, a tamasic person, he believes in quarreling, believes in fighting, and so he can divert and be angry with God. He can be jealous of other people that have not realized God. So there are instances in human history where tamasic saints also reached Godhood, sometimes by even hating the Ishta or hating God. For example, Kamsa. There are so many instances. Ravana also, they say, it is the choice was given to Ravana whether he wants to attain mukti or freedom from this existence by leading a good life, which would have taken him several lives. But if he says, if you agree to be born as an enemy of God, if you but enemy of God, you will perhaps attain him in 3 lives. So he chose the second option because he wanted freedom earlier. That's what they say, what the stories say. The idea behind this is that even if a person who is predominantly tamasic or rajasic, if he decides to worship God, he has taken a right decision. The main idea is to have an idea, to have a very clear conception of Godhood, and whatever be your present predisposition because of your gunas, if you are sincere, then those gunas will be purified, transmuted into something higher, and that will take you towards the goal. But Sri Ramakrishna here, he says, because of the preponderance of these different gunas in different people, there will be some kind of distinction. That is what the sub-judge who belonged to the Brahmo Samaj was asking. Normally, people would like to believe that everybody was created equal. This idea of equality at the gross level appeals to people a lot. The very idea of communism perhaps would have come from that all men should be equal. Now we talk of discrimination, we talk of distinction between the haves and have-nots, the rich and the poor, the privileged and the underprivileged, the black and the white. So there's so many issues which differentiate one human being from the other, one race from the other, one civilization from the other. So this distinction, this variety is part of God's creation because of the preponderance of or the predominance of certain gunas. So depending on the gunas, Sri Ramakrishna says there will be difference in the nature of the human personality, the nature of his sadhana, and the nature of his position in life. So he says everything, he gives some wonderful examples that some people believe that because of the preponderance of tamas or a little bit of rajas, they say, what's the point in calling on God? There is a beautiful world here, try to enjoy it. Enjoy it. God has given this world to be enjoyed. And he goes on enjoying it and says that, okay, when the time comes towards the end of my life, anyway, whatever we think before we die, that will take us to heaven. So let us postpone that spiritual journey till we are done with this world. So Sri Ramakrishna gives some very, very concrete examples. He says the bound souls bleeds. He gives an example from the animal kingdom that like a camel who bleeds by eating thorny bushes, but because of his hunger or because he's not satiated by this his hunger, so he goes on eating these shrubs which are thorny, and in the process cuts his own mouth and he starts bleeding. And the blood which his own blood along with the thorny bushes he tries to swallow or tries to eat, and that gives it a sweet taste, but he doesn't realize that every bush he's eating, every thorny bush he's eating, he's cutting his tongue and mouth and he's bleeding internally. So it is causing him great damage, but still he goes on eating because of the taste which. So Sri Ramakrishna had such a wonderful power of observation. Many people would have seen this camel eating thorny bushes and bleeding. Most of the people who live in dry areas, in desert areas, they've seen camels eating these shrubs because it doesn't get green fodder or green things to eat, green leaves. Very often they have to survive only on these thorny bushes. So Sri Ramakrishna would have observed, or at least he would have heard from somebody, that these camels, when they eat, their whole mouth start bleeding, but still they go on eating. That's part of their nature. So also he says the worldly man knows that what he is doing is causing more and more bondage, more and more trouble, and yet he goes on doing it. You ask him why does he do it? He doesn't have an answer. Just as a camel, when it feels, when that hunger for worldly life is there, then that person is forced to do certain things in spite of himself because of his gunas. So he gives an example. His son has died, but perhaps the son on whom he had a lot of hope. He gives another example from the human side, from the human being side, that there is a person who at his old age, I mean not old age, he has lost his son, whom he thought he would grow up and support him. So he goes on producing children, thinking that this son will survive and live, trying to ensure his future by means which may not be permanent. So the son may die or the son may leave him, but he still doesn't lose hope. The hope or asha is such a thing that it drags you. Swami Vivekananda wrote a beautiful poem that mother holds the rope of asha and that rope of karma, and the hope is something which drags that person. It goes hoping to attain one thing after another in this world. When that dream is shattered, he tries to attain something else. But he doesn't give up. That hope, if he had directed to God, he would have definitely reached that divinity or the godhood. But there are so many objects which tempt him, and he goes after many of them, and some of them he succeeds, some of them he doesn't succeed, but he doesn't rest. He has to go after something in the world. So that's why he says a son produces more children year after year. Everything he has is spent on his daughter's marriage, but he goes on begetting daughters every year. This is a very big issue, especially in Bengal of those days, where people used to have a lot of children, and with the hope that a son will be born, they used to, if a daughter is born, they used to consider it to be a misfortune, because the son would, they would expect the son, whether the son looks after them or not, but they would expect the son to be part of the family and support them at their old age. So if a daughter is born, they know they have to give that daughter away in marriage, and perhaps she may not be able to help him. So in spite of so many daughters being born, they just try and see that if they can get one more son. And in the process, they find it extremely difficult, and they struggle even to marry off the daughters whom they have, to whom they have given birth. So the parents, Sri Ramakrishna says, this is another example of how people willingly or unwillingly find it difficult to even focus on God, because the whole energy, the entire effort which they have, the energy and the effort they do, is spent in these things, the self-created bondages or the self-created problems they have created for themselves. So, but then he gives an, if you ask such a person, why does he do it? The answer, Sri Ramakrishna says, he says, I can't help it. It is my fate. So that is a very convenient way of explaining, trying to explain things, especially in India. And Swamiji believed that this was one of the reasons why we Indians did not progress, at least in the world, because we were fatalistic. Always our attitude would be resign everything and say that it is my fate, what can I do? So that idea of self-effort was not there. Idea of discrimination, why should I do, why should I be bound to this world? If there is an option, if I can be happy with less number of things, then why should I go and try to acquire more and not enjoy them and die while one is accumulating them? Perhaps he doesn't even get time to enjoy them. So this kind of lack of discrimination, Sri Ramakrishna says, uh, makes a person go after these things. And when somebody tells him, what made you do it, why did you do it, he will simply blame it on fate. He said, it is my fate, that's why I have these problems. But very often it is not fate. It is one lands oneself into trouble of one's own choosing. It's one's own choosing that is responsible for our troubles. And we tend to blame fate or blame God for our misery, not knowing that many times our internal voice of conscience, or we always get a hint what we should do or what we should not do. Yama very clearly told Nachiketa that Shreya and Preya, these two things approach every human being at every stage or every moment of our life. And it is the wise man, a dhiraha, a person who is full of patience and full of wisdom. He alone can negotiate or make a right choice at the right time. This making the right choice at the right time has been a issue which has not been resolved. Most of the people fail to resolve it and later on repent. So they go after the things which give them pleasure rather than the things which are really good for them. So Shreya is normally avoid, I would, because it is not, it is good, but it is not pleasant. Prayer is pleasant. So we people go after the prayer, the things which give them some kind of comfort or some kind of pleasure. People don't want to leave the comfort zone if they find that attaining good is difficult. So Shreya may be difficult, or at least it may appear to be difficult, but if one persists on that, ultimately will give us eternal joy and eternal happiness. But not knowing that, we go after the prayer. That's what he says. I can't help it. It is my fate. If he goes on a pilgrimage, another wonderful example Sri Ramakrishna gives that very often people take their families to pilgrimage. Now the purpose of pilgrimage is to have the darshan of, to have the uh, to worship the deity in that particular place, and they are supposed to spend more time in meditation, prayers and all. But he himself carries the luggage of, because he is going with his wife and the whole retinue of children he has got, so naturally he has to look after their comfort. Each one has its has, the child has its own demand. Every one of his children has to be satisfied, and in that process he's so exhausted, the main member of the family, and he's so busy with the preparation that he himself doesn't get an opportunity to worship God. And Sri Ramakrishna says, all he does is get some holy water, is pushed out of the temple, and that holy water he shares, and he thinks he has done a meritorious act by going. The very purpose of pilgrimage is defeated. He could have stayed at home and prayed. That would have been more beneficial. But this is because on one side, Sri Ramakrishna says, something is pulling him. The attention or the effort he should have done to worship God has been wasted by the bondages, by the energy he is expending in the bondages he has created for himself. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna says, no matter how much of pilgrimage he does, how much of holy places he visits, how much of japa he does, something drags him down. The worldly person has to see that along with spirituality or along with religious practices, he has to have some kind of detachment from the world. So it is abhyasa and vairagya. Abhyasa means practice of spirituality, and vairagya means detachment, at least mental detachment from the things, the worldly things. That's why he says there are so many kind of men. Such a person looks down upon those who call upon God and meditate on Him. And such people, though they cannot themselves meditate or sit quietly and contemplate on God, they would criticize, they would rather find it easy to criticize those people who have the luxury or who are wise enough to not to involve themselves in these problems and sit quietly and meditate. So Sri Ramakrishna says, instead of not doing themselves, they not only not do it themselves, they also criticize people who do it, whom they blame and they tell that this person is not doing any work. But why should everybody work? Why should everybody um, get involved in bondage? Because just because you feel happy to be bound day in and day out, uh, try to do these activities because you are bound, you expect the other person also to be bound. That is not the case. So Sri Ramakrishna says there, these people look down upon those who call upon God and meditate upon Him. The same thing happened with Sri Ramakrishna when he was asked, why don't you take up a job? Why don't you help your brother? So he said, I can't. I would not like to have a job which takes me away from God. So he was very clear. And then as a result, what happened was the whole the relatives and everybody who came in contact thought that he is doing something wrong, or maybe he was looked down upon in the beginning, that he is not a normal person. Because who is how can you have somebody who says all these bondages of the world I don't want? It's a very rare thing. So there are so many kinds of men. You see, you said men were equal, but how many varieties are there? Some have more power, some less. So Sri Ramakrishna is pointing out to this subject that never say that, because people are coming to this world with a different baggage of karma which they bring along with them. So naturally their tendencies will be different, their spiritual attainment will be different, and they will be at various stages of spiritual progress. So you cannot compare one with the other. But Sri Ramakrishna now continues this conversation and says what happens to a bound soul. The difference between a bound soul, the difference is just in the nature of bondage each one experiences. If a soul is more bound, the less he is inclined to spirituality. The, the less he is bound, the more he is inclined to spirituality. A bound soul who does not take the name of the Lord at the time of the death. So just previously, Sri Ramakrishna mentioned this fact that many people who think they are worldly wise, they think now let us enjoy this world, and when the time comes, anyway, Sri Krishna has promised in the Bhagavad Gita that whatever thought comes to you when you leave this body, that will determine your future birth. So they are perhaps people are overconfident that they will think of the Lord when the time comes. So now we can live as we like. But Sri Ramakrishna says, no, it is not possible. He says, a bound soul attached to worldliness talks only of the world at the time of death. Now, Sri Krishna also tells Arjuna, remember me and fight. Because he knew that the more you remember God when you are engaged in your duty, the more chances are that you will remember Him when you are about to die, because that is also a battle. So, whatever struggle, whatever battles we conduct on a daily basis, if we have the undercurrent of japa or the undercurrent of remembering God, which Holy Mother advised, that you continuously, there's no time or limit to the remembrance of God you can do. So she said that is the easiest and the best and the safest way, because whatever you do, the nature of your karma or the nature of your gunas, three gunas, you will be getting different types of karma, and you will have to do it, because you can't extricate yourself out of this situation, because depending on your gunas, depending on your karma, you are placed in certain situations. So you can't expect the situation to suddenly change. You have to gradually understand, first of all, why did I land up in this situation? Was I not given a choice? If I was given a choice, then why can't I use my choice now? Even now it is not too late. That's why Sri Krishna gives a message of hope to Arjuna. He says, even if a sinner decides to call upon God at some stage of his life, like Girish Chandra Ghosh did, and he approached Sri Ramakrishna, he knew that he has done so much of evil in this whole life that perhaps it is very difficult. Any saint would have discouraged him and said, no, it is impossible now, you are so worldly. But he went to Sri Ramakrishna, and Sri Ramakrishna gave hopes to even the worst or the vilest of people. He said, why not? You can, and anybody from any stage of life can decide to make the right choice at the right time. Nobody is condemned or damned for eternally. That's what Swamiji says. He says, I challenge every one of you, try to go down as much as possible. A stage will come when, by the sheer, when you go to the depths of misery, a day will come when you suddenly will start feeling that, no, now too much is too much. I have to now change the way I live. I have to change my ways. And then he will, by sheer, even if he goes to the lowermost point, he has to come up. So Swami Vivekananda says the cycle has to turn up. It can't remain at the bottom for long. So no person, however bad, can remain bad forever. That's the positive message Swamiji gives. Sri Ramakrishna also says that these people who say that the bound soul, they are attached to worldliness, talks only of the world at the time of the death. So he warns all the other people that don't believe such people, that they or their confidence that they will remember the Lord when they are about at the time of the death. What use is it to superficially count the beads or take a bath in the Ganges or visit holy places? If within oneself is attachment for the world, only the world comes out before the eyes at the time of the death. So even if you have done quite a few rituals or religious practices, but you, at the same time, rest of the time you have committed a lot of evil. Now whatever you have done more in this life and the previous lives will be your predominant thought at the time of death. So Swamiji, Sri Ramakrishna says, if that attachment is there, uh, he, only the world in which he lived comes before the eyes at the time of death. Perhaps he characterized out in delirium, turmeric powder, spiced blend, cassia leaf. Just to give an example, he's saying that people who day and night think of preparing good food, or maybe he's a grocer, he's always talking of turmeric, what is the rate of turmeric, and he may be one of the grocers of Calcutta. So Swamiji's Thakur says that perhaps he will utter the same things which he has been doing throughout his life. How can you expect, unless he has consciously practiced religion and spirituality, even while doing work? He might have sold turmeric, he might have sold all the different groceries, but if he is detached, he might have done all kinds of work. Even the Vyada, who was a butcher and who used to sell meat, realized the highest, because along with his profession, which he did not stop, he continued the undercurrent or the japa or the knowledge which he acquired, that was strong enough to detach him from this worldly things which he was doing. Though he did not physically give up those actions, he continued to be a butcher, he continued to do whatever work he was doing. But after becoming a Jnani, the ups and downs, the struggles of life did not affect him. So that's why he says a parrot. Sri Ramakrishna gives another example. The classic example which is given is a parrot may repeat whatever it is taught. So he says uh, the owner of the parrot, especially if it is a caged parrot, they are taught to imitate human sound. So many of the devotees, they'll say Radha Krishna, say Radha Krishna, Radha Krishna, and the parrot after hearing it, it tries to imitate that, and it even repeats after the master the same Radha Krishna. But then, because it was a newly acquired thing and they have not meditated on Radha Krishna, when the cat comes, by some chance, if the cat comes and happens to catch the throat of the parrot, the last sound which it will make, which will decide its future birth, is ka ka. So that is the croak which it gives normally. So at that time it won't say Radha Krishna, because its very nature is this cry, or the worldly nature which is there in that parrot, that will come out. Those thoughts will uppermost, which are uppermost, come out. So then he says, when the cat seizes it, the only sound that comes out of it is ka ka. The Gita says the same thing, that you will carry with you to your next life what you think of your death. King Bharata, now he gives another example, which is from the Puranas. King Bharata left his body repeating, dear, dear. He happened to, there was a young one of a deer which he kept as a pet in his ashrama. So the king, in his last days. So what he did was, he used to love that deer so much, he got attached so much, that he, when he left his body, he was thinking of the deer rather than God. And then he says, left the body repeating, dear, dear. So he was reborn as a deer. So that samskara which is predominant, the samskara which becomes predominant at the time of death, is the samskara which the thought or the habit which you have formed over a long time. So many years, if you practice japa, then it is very, very natural, because it's one thing which you have done throughout. You have maintained an undercurrent of that japa. So the name of the Lord, the name of Sri Ramakrishna would come, and then one could get freedom. But that is only if we decide what we should be doing in every moment of our life. So that practice of the presence of God is something which one has to do, irrespective of his gunas, irrespective of his vocation or his sadhana. So what, or his worldly status or position. So it doesn't matter what kind of profession you are doing, as long as you do something constantly which you will remember. And in the same way, while one is doing japa and spiritual practices, one has to do the work which one is doing with the least kind of attachment, with a lot of detachment, that you just do it for the sake of doing it and just forget about the consequences. You do the best. You, of course, you have to focus a lot, concentrate a lot on the work which you are doing, otherwise it will not be good enough to offer to the Lord. But when you are doing that work, you should not be attached. You should feel that it is nothing but a kind of japa or a spiritual practice which I am doing, and at the end of the job you just offer that particular activity, where you have to concentrate a lot and could not think of the Lord. Tell him, I have finished my job, I am offering it to you. So that is one way of which Sri Ramakrishna says, if you constantly repeat his name, then the chances are that when you leave this body, if you remember that, then your goal will be Sri Ramakrishna or your Ishta. You will become one with that Ishta. So if you think of God at the time of death, you attain him, and then you don't have to return to this world. It's only if you think of God, of Sachidananda Brahma, at the last moment, then there are no other samskaras. That means the sum total of all the samskaras you have acquired in so many lives ultimately have resulted in one particular thought predominating, and that was the thought of the Lord, the thought of Brahman or Sri Ramakrishna. So you are, I mean, the grace of Lord will definitely take such a person, because Krishna has promised, whoever remembers me, whatever he remembers at the last moment of his life will decide his future birth, if at all he has a birth. So even if we have future births, that will be determined to a large extent on the last thought. But if we have thoughts of mukti, Sri Ramakrishna says he will get mukti. So and once he gets mukti, he'll definitely be free and not return to this world. Now the Brahmo devotee asks another question, not the sub-judge. So I think after giving this long answer, the sub-judge is satisfied. So another Brahmo devotee asks this question. Sir, say one has meditated on God at other times, but not at the time of death. Does it mean that he will have to come out to this world of pleasure and pain again? Why would that be if he had meditated on God earlier? So now this is a very reasonable and logical question. That is, suppose some person has meditated a lot during his life on God, but suddenly when death comes near, he utters something else. So what will be his fate? Sri Ramakrishna is asking. Sri Ramakrishna has been asked by this Brahmo devotee. So Sri Ramakrishna says, a man might meditate on God but have no faith in him. Now this is a very important thing to remember. Meditating can become mechanical, or what Sri Ramakrishna refers to here by meditation is just thinking, namasmarana or whatever it is. So that can be possible. He says people have no faith in God. That's why they suffer so much from the consequences of actions. So if they had faith in God, and if they had faith that every action I do, I'll offer to the Lord, then they will not be bound by that action. That is one of the main secrets of Karma Yoga, that you do it without attachment, it frees you. You do it with attachment, it binds you more and more. The same karma. You don't have to change the nature of the karma. That is the beauty of Indian Vedanta, or especially the Karma Yoga, which Swamiji expounded very clearly. His Raj Yoga and Karma Yoga are two books which every person has to read, because it doesn't just deal with philosophy. It gives a lot of practical hints, how to practice bhakti, how to practice Raja Yoga, and also how to practice yoga, which is also a practical science. Jnana sometimes can lead you to a place where you go round and round in circles. And you imagine that you have understood Vedanta, you heard so many YouTube talks, and you can ask some wonderful questions, insightful questions, and many things you may have developed during the course of your life. But that doesn't mean that you have understood the true purport or the true import of that knowledge. So, not that knowledge of God or Ishta, a preliminary knowledge is definitely necessary, but beyond that, it is the type of practice one can do. The amount of practice or the amount of yearning or amount of sincerity you have, that will determine to a very major extent, what are the fruits of action you will get in this life or the next life. If there is a next birth, those things will decide that. So, but people have to have faith in God. Faith in God or faith in the Guru, faith in the mantra. The whole idea of faith is a very, very powerful tool. It has something to do with prana as well. Swamiji will discuss in Raj Yoga that the stronger the prana, the stronger the will, the stronger the faith. So it is necessary, though, this to take sometimes the help of gross. So for example, when you are in a very gross state, you need somebody to tell you. You know the sense organs of hearing. You don't have spontaneous realization or vision. You have to start with some imagination. For that, your attention span, your the whole mind should be under your control, and that means you should have faith. So if you have faith, and if you perform your actions with the faith that I have to dedicate everything to God. I have taken the mantra of the Lord and I am repeating it. So how can I be bound? How can the previous karma produce its effect? I have the capacity to destroy my samskaras before even they become thoughts and before even they become prarabdha karma. The sanchita karma which is stored in the chitta can be destroyed, and more and more bondage can be prevented by doing this namasmarana. But that requires faith. That's why they suffer so much from the consequences of actions. People say that when you take a dip in the Ganges, your sins have leave you and perch themselves on a tree at the bank of the river. As soon as you return to the bank after the bath, all your sins fly back again and sit firmly on your shoulders. All laugh. You must prepare beforehand so that your mind is in God at the time of death. The way is in constant practice. Then you will remember God in your last moments. So here Sri Ramakrishna is saying, apart from faith, you have to, of course, the faith gives one the inspiration to do effort. If we begin with faith, but somewhere we have to begin. That is why if you begin with a faith and you begin with imagination and faith in that imagination, because as I told you, meditation in the beginning is imagination. The very fact that this japa will lead you, the repetition of the name will lead you to your ideal. Even that begins from some basic faith in the Guru, in the mantra, and in Sri Ramakrishna. So systematically from the gross, we start having faith in the spiritual and use these spiritual practices. Though at present I do not, or we do not have a firm conviction because of absence of vision or some such experience. But as you go, as your faith develops, the more you go forward, the faith will develop. And when you, especially when you do rituals, Sri Ramakrishna has explained this, taking the Ganga bath as a ritual, because that is one of the most important rituals in every Hindu sadhaka who stays by the bank of the Ganga. Even if he doesn't stay, he very often carries that bottle of Ganga Jal. So either by purifying the hand with that or sprinkling it, he tends to think that he can be induced to do only good karma. So much the importance is there. So this faith, the faith in the power of Lord, the faith in the conviction, or the faith in the conviction that bondage is harmful. See, it's not enough to just have faith in God. Abhyasa, repeating the name, should be there, but Vairagya also is necessary. On one side, you attach yourself to God. On another side, you lessen your attachment to the world. You cannot possibly leave everything, but try to see that same God whom we are worshipping in other beings, in our activity, in our day-to-day life. So that's why he says people have to have faith, but they don't have faith in God. That's why they suffer so much from the consequences of actions. People say that when you take a dip in the Gangas, your sin leave you and perch themselves on a tree at the bank of the river. As soon as you return to the bank after the bath, all your sins fly back again and sit firmly on your shoulders. So everybody laughs. So this is a very good example which Thakur gave. That no doubt for some time the rituals, the puja, all the mechanical things which we associate with religion or the practice of religion will give us some help. It will at least prevent you during the ritual to be to receive bad thoughts, to do bad things. At least at that time you are restraining your mind, or you are preventing the mind from having bad thoughts and bad consequences as a result. So what happens is, he says, they suffer so much from the consequences, but after that they suffer, and to remove that suffering they go to the Ganga. And Swamiji Thakur says maybe the purity of the Ganga definitely removes all the sin for some time, but then when he comes back, the sins, as it were waiting for him on the tree, and they just sit on his shoulders, and again he starts his normal routine or normal worldly routine. Now and then he might come to religion, but Sri Ramakrishna wanted He's giving a hint to M that please remember that you have to do it constantly. Otherwise, it is not possible. Then he says, as soon as you return, you must prepare beforehand so that your mind is in God at the time of death. So, at other times, not during the time of death, but most of the time before we realize that we might die. So, that time, if it is rightly spent, and if you remember, constantly remember Abhyasa Yoga, that is the word he is given. So, if you must prepare beforehand so that your mind is in God at the time of death. How will it happen? When you repeat the mantra continuously? So you are more likely to exit this world by repeating the name of the Lord. The way is in constant practice, which has been termed as abhyasa. So once you have vairagya, then you have abhyasa also. You have to add something positive to your personality. That's what we do. To negate the bad effects of the karma, you have to add something positive, that is japa. And the more subtly you do it, if you repeat it loudly, it will be gross. If you repeat it less loudly, mentally, it will become far superior. And the higher the kind of repetition you do, the more powerful the thing becomes. That sadhana begins. So that is how this constant effort will induce you to remember God at the end, at the time of death. Then you will remember God in your last moments. Then the Brahmo devotee is very happy. He says, we have had a nice conversation, very nice indeed, because with such clarity and so much outspoken way, Sri Ramakrishna told these devotees the do's and don'ts, or the essentials of spiritual life. See, he was so frank to the extent that he did not mind if some people felt bad. He was a person who could call a spade a spade. He didn't mince matters. He knew that if I have to benefit somebody, then I have to tell the truth. Spirituality cannot be attained but like we attain worldly goods, through compromises. Our life is full of compromises, and we think in spirituality also we can compromise. But Sri Ramakrishna says you cannot do that. You can't have God and mammon at the same time. As Jesus also, Jesus was more, you can say, uh, uncompromising in his attitude. He said, you simply can't. It is not possible for the rich man to enter the gates of heaven. So that perhaps brings a lot of fear to people who have a lot of wealth. And that's what happened when Saint Francis, if you go to Assisi, you will find that wonderful life. Saint Francis of Assisi himself was a very rich man, but he knew his faith in the Bible, his conviction in the Bible made him believe, and in Jesus Christ, believed that I have to take up the cross and follow Jesus. It cannot be that I will keep my wealth and at the same time I have God. So Sri Ramakrishna also is very unequivocal when he says you can't have both. You have to follow one, or you have to stick to one and have a conviction in one. Once you have that conviction, then the path becomes easy. So Sri Ramakrishna says, oh, I've just been talking at random, but do you know my inner state of mind? Now, Sri Ramakrishna has discussed many things, if you see, with the sub-judge and with the Brahmo devotee. And till now, we have found so many topics. How a man gets entangled in the world, what are the different types of human beings, depending on their guna, who is more likely to become spiritual or attain to the goal of life, and everything, and what should be done to attain to that state. Now Sri Ramakrishna says, but still he is so humble. He says, I have just been talking randomly. Though it was wonderful way Sri Ramakrishna explained, it was very essential what to understand that. So, but he still, out of humility, says, oh, I have just spoken some random things. Did it really help you? But do you know what my inner state of mind is? I am the instrument and he is the operator. Now, after doing all these things, Sri Ramakrishna, this was a very, very fundamental trait of Sri Ramakrishna. He used to tell something with lot of authority. And the moment that feeling of ego came, that I was a teacher, he immediately withdrew into his shell and said, "Oh, this is nothing. It is only mother who made me speak all these things." So his own ego had practically vanished. He never felt he was a guru. So Sri Ramakrishna says, in M has remarked that Sri Ramakrishna did not like these three things: Baba or Guru, somebody calling him a teacher or a father. He did not like, because he believed that I am, unless this humility is there. So he says, I just tell you my state of mind now. That is what Sri Ramakrishna is telling the Brahmo devotee. I don't feel that I am telling you all these things. It is simply coming out of my mouth because mother is behind me. So he says, I am the dwelling and he is the dweller. He means God, mother or father, the supreme being. I am the engine, he is the engineer. I am the chariot and he is the charioteer. I move as he makes me move. I do as he makes me do. So here, Sri Ramakrishna is addressing some people who have tremendous faith, who have this particular attitude. As I told you, Sri Ramakrishna used to believe that if you have an attitude and if you persist or stick to that attitude throughout your life, then your spiritual life becomes easy. You can't be many things at the same time. You can't be the son, you can't be the daughter, you can't be the father or mother at the same time. You have to play your role according to what he has given. Whatever you choose for yourself, you have to persist in that. So Sri Ramakrishna says the best attitude is that he is dwelling in me and he is making me do everything. So my ego doesn't have a chance to prop up. Then he says, he is the dweller, I am the dwelling and he is the dweller. Then he says, the dwelling, the outer cover is myself. We can, but then whatever motivates, whatever inspires the dwelling, the house, or the chariot, the charioteer or the owner of the house will decide. The operator will decide how the machine shall move and all those things. So he is the charioteer. I move as he makes me move. I do as he makes me do. So now we come to another chapter. Trilokya and all, they are still there. We are still in this conversation. And this questions have been answered satisfactorily. And Sri Ramakrishna has given some wonderful insight as to how things happen, how the worldliness can go, what is the solution, how many types of people are there, how many types of inclinations are there. That is why there is so much of inequality in society, in the world. So Sri Ramakrishna seems to be pointing that. But now he says, now then it's time for some singing. So Trilokya again sings. When everything has become quiet, Sri Ramakrishna perhaps tells him to sing a few songs. There was a lot of discussion. Now and then you'll find this trait in Sri Ramakrishna, that when there is too much of dry discussion, suddenly he will raise the spirituality of that whole area. Swami Turiyanji used to say that we used to feel a strange kind of joy. Holy Mother, who used to live in the opposite building, through the small mat, she would try to see and catch this. So he says, Sri Ramakrishna now again suddenly feels that I have been speaking so much, now let us sing. And Trilokya sings, accompanied by drum and cymbal. Sri Ramakrishna is dancing mad with love for God. Just now he was talking like a philosopher and explaining everything. Suddenly he becomes ecstatic with the love of God. So that is how Sri Ramakrishna showed in his own life. How could one do Karma Yoga? How can one do discrimination, practice Jnana Yoga, tell so many things to the disciples? And yet, suddenly, when somebody sings, he could leave all intellectual discussions and immediately go into joy, singing those songs or enjoying those songs. Here we'll find Trilokya was a very good singer. So the spirit of the song Sri Ramakrishna would sometimes take and add his own original words into that song. So some of the original words here have been retained. So M perhaps would have retained only or remembered only these things. He is not given the original, but whatever Sri Ramakrishna modified and improvised. Sri Ramakrishna used to improvise these songs, and some other bhava other than what the poet had given for that song, Sri Ramakrishna used to spontaneously compose some verses and add it to that in the same tune, and it used to match also. So he has gone into samadhi a number of times while dancing. Now this is M's observation. You see, just one song could induce such a big bhakti that he would uh, go into samadhi many number of times while he was dancing. Now he stands in samadhi, his body is motionless, eyes fixed, face smiling, leaning on the shoulder of a dear devotee. When he comes down a little from that state, he dances like an intoxicated elephant. Regaining external consciousness, he adds his own lines to the song. Now, Sri Ramakrishna from Samadhi never came back immediately, gradually used to come back, and when he came back, he used to participate in this kirtan which was going on. The singer was singing, and he used to sing in his own sweet voice the song which was started by Trailoka, and then suddenly improvise a few lines and then sing. The song says, regarding external consciousness, he adds his own lines to the song. The lines of the song are, Mother, dance around your devotees, dancing yourself, make them dance too. O my mother, dance in the lotus of my heart. O Brahmamai, whose essence is Brahman, dance in your world bewitching form. So Sri Ramakrishna here is himself dancing and adding a prayer. He's so ecstatic, he wants the mother also to join. And he says, dance in the lotus of my heart. So far you have been dancing externally, or the other people have been dancing externally. Perhaps that would have induced somebody to dance, close your eyes and also dance. There's no need to do it physically. But here he says, now you mother, you have shown enough of your dance, the positive dance and the dance of destruction as well. If you read Kali the Mother, you'll get this idea. But then he says, after dancing, see that you dance in the lotus of my heart, O Brahma whose essence is Brahman. Now, when we think of our Ishta, why do we think of meditating in the heart? Well, that is how we can uh, induce those wonderful higher emotions of bhakti and transmute or transform the jealousy and all the strong emotions which we have cultivated over ages. It tries to balance that first, then overpower it, and then we have this wonderful spirit of the song. O Brahmamai, whose essence is Brahman, dance in your world bewitching form. So these are partially based on the visions Sri Ramakrishna had. Now M is in no position to know what Sri Ramakrishna saw when he went to Samadhi so many times, just before going to Samadhi. He would have experienced wonderful things. So, but here it is a rare sight, the dance of this divine child maddened with love, his soul merged in the Divine Mother. The Brahmo devotees dance around him like iron filings and a magnet. They all chant the name of Brahman in a frenzy of love. Then they chant the sweet name of Brahman, the name of Mother. Many of them weep like child as they repeat Mother, Mother. You see, mostly these are tears of joy. So when these people uh, get a impetus from Sri Ramakrishna, who himself sings, dances, improvises songs, they also get a lot of courage, and then they are, it is transferred. This idea or the devotion of which Thakur had is so contagious that it overwhelms the sadhakas, and then they don't have to go out and they don't have to practice the emotion, the bhakti or the emotions which they want to feel. They can simply get it by listening, or even imagine, or even listening to the songs and watching the dance of Sri Ramakrishna. That was his power, to transmit spiritual power or spiritual emotion by making people participate, just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who used to encourage all the people who had come for satsang to join him in kirtan. He didn't like to sing only solo songs or maybe get it sung by somebody. They used to participate, because that way they used to rouse their emotions and take or influence a whole lot of people. That is how they imbibed these ideas. And he was the ideal teacher, as M said. He knew what are the different techniques which one should use to impress or to inspire certain people. When he found that people are losing interest in discussion, many of them are not able to even understand this philosophy, then he suddenly decides spontaneously. And the spontaneity is Sri Ramakrishna's wonderful thing here. He spontaneously decided, no, let me sing, let me, all of them come, let us practice bhakti yoga for some time. And for many, it may be very good. So it is a rare sight, the dance of this divine child maddened with love, his soul merged in divine mother. Brahmo devotees dance around him like iron filings round a magnet. His personality was so magnetic that these Brahmos who never worshipped a personal god, even they started dancing. They all chant the name of Brahman in a frenzy of love. Then they chant the sweet name of Brahman, the name of mother. Many of them weep like children as they repeat mother, mother. When the singing ends, they all take seats. The evening worship of the Samaj has not yet begun or performed. In the joy of singing, all rules have been brushed aside. The plans had been for Vijay Krishna Goswami to take the pulpit after dusk. It is about 8 p.m. So they were so enthralled that all their regular routine, Brahmo routine, and from where Vijay Krishna Goswami and all would have had to address, even that was cancelled. Such was the joy and fervor which we could feel in this wonderful veranda of Dakshineshwar. Everyone is now seated. Sri Ramakrishna also has taken his seat. Vijay is sitting in front of us. A message comes from Vijay's old mother-in-law and some other women would like to see Sri Ramakrishna and talk to him. So Thakur goes into another room to meet them. He returns in a little while and says to Vijay, what great and loving devotion your mother-in-law has for God. She says, I will not talk about worldly things now. There one wave disappears, another wave arrives. I said, what does it matter to you? You already have knowledge. Please print. What does it matter to you? You already have knowledge. All at this, your mother-in-law said, what knowledge do I have? I have not yet gone beyond Vidya Maya, the power of knowledge, and Avidya Maya, the power of ignorance. It is not enough to go beyond Avidya, you have to go beyond Vidya also. Then alone you will gain spiritual knowledge, you say to yourself. So, when they are discussing this, Sri Ramakrishna is telling Vijay, he is referring to the mother-in-law of Vijay Krishna Goswami, who herself was a great devotee. Now you remember, here the devotees are predominantly following the path of Jnana. So Sri Ramakrishna, with his wonderful kirtan and devotion, wants to show that it is much easier to go beyond Vidya and Avidya, to go beyond this word bondage and reach mukti if you just pray to the Divine Mother and think that she is the instrument. So she will inspire you, she will guide you, she'll do everything for you. Then Sri Ramakrishna, while they are talking, Benipal enters. So Benipal to Vijay, sir, please rise. It's already very late. Please start the worship. So Vijay then answers, sir, what is the need for worship now? You have provided the rice pudding first and then the lentils and other dishes. So lentils and other dishes were normally served first and then the rice pudding was given in a normal. So Vijay Krishna Goswami is just joking. Now, why should we go for Aarti or the Vespers or whatever they used to practice? When we have the highest emotion, the highest dance and singing by Thakur, after having seen this, who will like to just go and do a few rituals mechanically? That's why Vijay says, what is the need of worship now? You have provided the rice pudding first and then the lentils and the other dishes. So the other dishes, once you have the rice pudding, I mean something like payas or this wonderful sweet. So if you are full with that, then you don't like to go to lower things like rituals. So that is what Vijay Krishna Goswami says, and he concludes. So in the next class, now we will have a few question answers. But Sri Ramakrishna, I'll just read one or two lines because this particular section ends here. Ramakrishna is laughing. As is the devotee, so is the provision made by him. The Sattvic devotee provides the rice pudding, the Rajasic one offers 50 dishes to the deity, while the Tamasic devotee sacrifices a goat or even some animal. So Sri Ramakrishna just laughs and says, see, even here there is a distinction. A tamasic person would like to offer non-vegetarian food, offer animal sacrifice so that he can take that as prasad because he is basically tamasic. He wants tamasic food. Perhaps a sattvic person, rajasic person, though he is full of enjoyment, he wants to eat good dishes, he decides, let me offer 51 dishes. There is this famous Chappan Bhog, 56 they say, which is given to some of the temples. So many items have been prepared. Now, do you think God requires all these things? It is mainly to satisfy that you go on adding dishes year after year, and then the whole idea of bhoga, and then we try to enjoy that. So Sri Ramakrishna says Rajasic will try to do that. He will offer 50 dishes to the devotee, whereas the Sattvic devotee provides only rice pudding. That's why when Swami Vivekananda decided to make some rules of Belur Math and of the different mats, he said our goal is to we live an uncomplicated life, offer simple things to the Lord and take that as prasad. Unless we need a variety of food, why should we bother? A sattvic person will think, if I offer pies, I'll eat that. Swami Shashi Maharaj used to say that sometimes he just had to offer rice. There was nothing else. They were so poor. And he was happy with that. And whatever he offered to Thakur, he used to eat himself. So when nothing came, fortunately it came after some time, but when nothing was offered to the deity, nothing came as offering. There was nothing in the house, in the monastery, in Madras Mutt. Shashi Maharaj said, today if nothing comes, I will offer you sand. And not only that, I'll eat that sand or eat that soil myself. Because there was absolutely nothing. So that is why Sri Ramakrishna says a sattvic person, because he needs very little, he can live on very little, he can lead a simple life. He doesn't have the, like a Rajasic person, doesn't want all the huge thing, very tasty things, by offering which he can eat it as prasad later. So he doesn't bother, it just offers rice pudding. He doesn't even offer the other foodstuffs. But that's what he's going to eat. If he offers fruit, he will eat fruit. So whatever we offer, that is important. And that is what we should eat. That's what Sri Ramakrishna says. Vijay ponders whether or not he should go up to the podium for worship. Now, after having given this hint, and advising the Brahmos to keep things simple, not to be overtly ritualistic. Vijay Krishna Goswami, who is the founder of Sadharan Brahmo Samaj, perhaps decides or is in two minds. Now, after hearing Sri Ramakrishna point out to me the essentials of spirituality, should I now engage myself in some kind of formal ritual? Is not what Sri Ramakrishna said more than enough? He has given us the highest knowledge, the highest devotion. So he has practically served us with the rice pudding. So we don't have to offer God lesser dishes. So that's the idea, and there the dialogue concludes. But then the next class we'll see Vijay then takes permission. Still he feels that he should fulfill the obligation. If they the ceremonial talk or the regular talk he was supposed to give, though Sri Ramakrishna has come, Vijay asked Sri Ramakrishna whether he should go. If Sri Ramakrishna instructs, he would be ready to do the normal services. So Sri Ramakrishna then gives a lot of answers, and then there's a conversation between Vijay Krishna Goswami and Sri Ramakrishna. We'll take it up in the next class. So now we'll have a very few questions. We just exceeded the time. I'll go to the gallery view first. And we will, yeah. You can ask questions. If there are some questions to be asked, you can, yes. Yeah. I have unmuted you. You can ask now. Yes. Can you hear me? 1 minute, just a minute. Amit, can you unmute yourself? Your voice I'm not able to hear. Okay, just a minute. Yeah. Amit, can you? Wait, I'll Amit, I think there is some adjustment you need to make. I'll ask somebody else to. Yes. Yeah, Anuradha can ask. 1 minute. Where is Anuradha? Hey, Amit, I'll okay, now you can ask. Amit can, Reena can ask.
Namaste, Swamiji.
Oh, no, namaste, namaste. I can hear you now, please.
Okay. Just a quick question. Between the three gunas, if
Yes.
you're of a certain personality,
Yes.
like one is more dominant than the other,
Yes.
with time and with sadhana, can you go from one to another?
Yeah, the Sri Krishna said, see, for example, a person is tamasic. He has a lot of anger, he has a lot of jealousy. So he invariably, he will be angry that God is not revealing himself. You know, Kamsa and all, they were very angry with God. They always quarreled with God. So they directed everything they had, the tamas which they had, to God. And in the process, no doubt they had to suffer the consequences of that, but they didn't mind because ultimately God rescued them. So what happens is when you direct whatever guna, whether God has given you more rajas, if you are rajasic, then you will worship God in a particular way. I'll just yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. So if you are sattvic, then you would perform a different kind of sadhana. So you can upgrade yourself. Suppose the more of from your graduating from tamas to rajasic quality, then you will see there is a change in your worship. Instead of your anger will be reduced. You will not be angry with God, but then you will try to please Him with lot of rituals and all. But then you will find that even rituals are not helping you. Then you will say, okay, now let me be a sattvic devotee, and then you will upgrade yourself, and then you will offer only very simple offering to Lord and concentrate more on japa, bhajan, and all those things, higher forms of spiritual practices, and you will do it in a very quiet way. You will not try to do things in public like Rajasic people, you know, they would like to do everything in a very, very grand way. So that is how a devotee changes from tamas to rajas, from rajasic to sattvic. So Sri Krishna says the sattvic person likes to be very unassuming. He will quietly sit in a corner because he knows, after all, the sincere spiritual practices which you are able to do alone, that alone will matter. It really doesn't matter if you don't make 50 dishes for the Lord, because He is not going to eat it. You are going to eat it, isn't it? So one dish is happy. Now in Gita also say patram pushpam phalam toyam. You just can give him one patra, one pushpa, one small fruit. If you get, God is happy. So the more sattvic a person becomes, the lesser. So in the same life itself, we can see Sri Ramakrishna himself began with rituals, and then he showed how one can rise beyond these rituals. And towards the end of his life, he did not do anything yet to just repeat mother's name, sitting in any position, anywhere, does not even have to go to the temple. So these stages you can see in everybody's life, and we have to decide whether we are really becoming more and more sattvic. That should be our that should be our goal, or that should be our aim, not to stick to certain things which were preliminary. It is good to begin with rituals, but then if we think we are mature enough, and if we think that now the time has come when we should be more serious and focus more on spirituality, the essentials, become more sattvic, because a sattvic person is very close to God, as Sri Ramakrishna pointed out. He is more closer to God than the other. Others will take time. They have to pass through all these stages, and ultimately they will rise higher and higher, and then transcend all the gunas. See, finally you have to transcend even the sattva also. Like it is less binding. Rajas binds you more. Tamas binds you the most. So it is from lower bondage to higher bondage to lower bondage. And when you go to when your nature becomes sattvic, your bondage is very, very minimum, and you are just very near to the Lord. So is it clear? Yeah. So Anuradha can ask now. I have unmuted.
Namaste, Maharaj.
Namaste.
Maharaj, at day-to-day level, I mean, continuation of the point that you just made, I was wondering, how do we actually control the negativity? I mean, I know it has to be a conscious effort, but if you could just illustrate, give
Yeah, you
us an
see,
example.
Sri Ramakrishna gives a wonderful psychological tool. He
Yes,
says,
Maharaj.
don't convert, try to convert, because every time you think of negativity, it increases. Suppose you are having some problems with your ego or jealousy. So if you
Okay.
constantly try to there is one way, the path of knowledge, where you discriminate between real and unreal and find out whether the jealousy is really helping you. But that requires a wonderful intellect. But a simpler way for most of us is to direct those evil qualities or those weaknesses to God directly. So he says the moment you focus your anger on God, the anger becomes less and less. It is transmuted into something wonderful, and then yearning for God increases, and then these things, negative qualities, automatically fall off. So Sri Ramakrishna always used to advocate a natural way where you don't think of your bad qualities but direct it to God instead of directing it to human beings and other people. If you direct it to the world, then the world destroys you. If you direct your anger to your fellow human beings, you know what is the result. Everybody knows. And you have to bear the consequences. But God is somebody to whom, if you direct your anger, in fact, He takes away your anger and gives you a wonderful peace. So you can do anything you like with God. That's why even Kamsa, Ravana, and all, they even fought with God and could get mukti. In the process, of course, they had to die, because that is how the karma works. But at the same time, it shows us there's a wonderful psychological tool that whatever we can't handle, we just offer it to God. So I think the best way for most of us, of course, those who are capable of doing it, they can analyze it and try to find out, what does anger do to me? What does jealousy do to me? What does envy do to me? If it destroys you, then you have to avoid that. But that path, if it is difficult, then you just turn it to God, and then you will see that it becomes more and more sublime. The anger becomes more lesser and lesser, and then you will find that anger has totally vanished. So is it clear? I mean, this is a
Yes,
simple.
Maharaj.
Okay.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Vishwas, how are you? You want to ask something? Yes. I've unmuted you.
Okay, Maharajji, Pranam Maharajji.
Yeah.
I enjoyed your talk very well. My question you have partially answered before is that our bad tendencies are so powerful. We know them, we know the problem. We want to get over the problem, but we keep on making the same mistakes over and over again.
So I told you, the simplest solution is try to bring God into the picture. You see, we are making the same mistakes because somehow God thinks that you are happy with yourself. So he says, okay, you struggle. So he doesn't interfere. But if we ask God or maybe somehow bring him into the picture by either by doing japa, then Sri Ramakrishna says these things will automatically vanish. You will do it because what Sri Ramakrishna says is, suppose you are doing 100 times, you used to get angry 100 times. By repeating God's name, it will reduce to say 70 times. After a few months, you will see that it's coming down. So it is a gradual decrease to the proportion, I mean, to the extent you can increase your remembrance of God. There is no shortcut, that these things have to be endured and slowly you have to get rid of them. There's no magic wand which will say, okay, from tomorrow I'll never be angry. It will never happen. All these things have been accumulated over years. So it has become tendencies. So the japa and the mantra has the power to subdue the tendencies at the causal level. So there is this karana sharira where our samskar, the seed from where these tendencies have these seeds have a tendency to sprout again and again. So when you say when they come again and again, the cause is not in the it is in the subconscious mind where it is in seed form. So to destroy that, our effort is of no use. You have to put in a lot of effort by way of japa, and bija mantra has so much of potency in it to destroy it at the root level. So lesser and lesser evil qualities will sprout. They are destroyed. Okay. So Arijit, yes.
Maharajji, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
Pranam Maharajji.
Namaste.
For ordinary spiritual seekers like us, I've often felt that our relationship with God is very formal,
Yes.
very rigid, very structured. Perhaps because we are bound by traditional practices, like simple examples like fasting before offering our prayers, sitting in an asana while chanting mantras. You were mentioning this in our last class,
Yes.
that we must love God like we love our parents.
Yes.
Now, if there is such a formal structure in our relationship with God,
Yes.
are these traditional practices not too limiting, and do they not pose as blockers in our quest to love God?
They do. These formal practices, they actually hinder your progress, because that's why Sri Ramakrishna says at some stage of our life, we have to be serious about our spiritual practices. And the most natural way to do it without disturbing our routine, you can continue with the same things. There's no need to change your profession or anything drastically. All you have to do is convert the spiritual practices you are doing into a simple relationship with God. Like your God is your father, or God is your mother, or God is somebody, whatever relation you feel comfortable with. You try to have that kind of relationship, and then you will find all the other things will fall into proper place. So you are true. You are correct when you say that we have institutionalized religion, or we have made it a very formal thing. That is because society has told us right from childhood, we have been sort of hypnotized into the belief that unless you do this, unless you do that, God will be angry, or God you will suffer. So there are so many wrong ideas put into our brain that we don't realize that there is a simple way to become spiritual, which Sri Ramakrishna. That's why Swamiji says, the time is very short, our lives are short, we don't have time, so you have to read only books which induce you or give you real love of God. And now those books have to be chosen judiciously. If you can't do it, you leave it to your guru to do it for you, if you have a guru. And just focus on the essentials which consume less, not only less time, but are easier to practice. The very idea of taking up a particular ishta and doing a sadhana and doing the mantra sadhana is to reduce the formal things which you are doing all the while. Why do we take initiation? Why do we take up one particular path? To simplify things, not to complicate things. The whole idea is uh, that we have complicated religion, we have complicated our whole life, in fact. Yesterday, somebody was asking me, my memory is getting weaker and weaker, some 90-year-old person. And he was saying that my memory is getting weaker and weaker. I'm not able to remember some of my relatives. I said, it is very good. The only thing you need to remember at this age is God. Why should you remember all your relatives? In fact, you have to make effort to forget them. So it is good if you are, God has given you, smriti can be very bad, Smriti, memory can create a lot of problems. We think good memory is good. Good memory of a good person or God is good. But if you have memory of all the evil people, all the people who have done evil, bad to you, and you keep on repenting, then it can be very bad. So the thing is, we have to focus less on the things which the world has taught us and stick to the basic spiritual instructions you get. If you are lucky enough, you get those instructions from somebody who shows you the path. And Sri Ramakrishna is somebody who has incarnated, according to Swamiji, it is not according to me. Swami Vivekananda felt that Sri Ramakrishna came to make religion accessible to people, spirituality accessible to people, and to make religion easy. There was a huge burden, as you said, of rituals accumulated as encrustations over centuries. So many people, selfish people, have imposed all sorts of organized religion on the top of our people like us, and ordinary people, I mean so-called ordinary people, and then we have been confused and we do not know what is the essential. So Sri Ramakrishna came at a stage when things were really bad. People were quarreling with each other over rituals. Shaktas were quarreling with Shaivas were quarreling with Vaishnavas. Somebody said by eating vegetarian you will realize God. Somebody said no, we have to offer. The Shaktas believed in eating non-vegetarian food. Food became important, dress became important, wearing certain marks became important, and everything other than spirituality was practiced. So it is true that we have to focus on the essentials and stick to the fundamental principles which will make us spiritual. And the best guide, as far as I know, is, if you take my personal opinion, is the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, because that is the book, and his life, of course, in the light of his own life and teachings. If you read the Gospel, he has made religion very, very simple and taken the essence of all the religious sects of the world, not only Hinduism, but even Christianity, Islam, everything. You will find a wonderful bouquet of flowers which Sri Ramakrishna says, you do this, and uh, he has tried to simplify religion for us. Okay?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Namaste. Anybody else? Okay. Yeah, no, I think. Acha, Shantanu wanted to ask. Where is Shantanu? He had raised his hand. Now I think he has left. Is Shantanu there? Yeah. Shantanu can ask. Yes, I have unmuted you.
Maharaj, Pranam, I just saw a question which came in my mind today.
Yes.
Is possibly, maybe you have discussed before, is about what is Ajapa job? I forgot that.
Ajapa is a technical word. In our scripture, when we continuously practice japa, it becomes a sort of undercurrent that japa has to continuously, it's not just practicing the presence, the very word becomes so natural. It is like playing tanpura. Have you heard tanpura or some instrument which is always playing in the background? When you are singing, the musician tries to sing different songs, but there is something which goes in the background as a shruti. So it is like something like shruti. So what happens is, Holy Mother used to say that after a certain, after several years of practice, and not only practice, with a little bit of vairagya also, that japa becomes so natural and spontaneous that it continues even in spite of your efforts. Even if you don't make any effort, it continues. You know, the momentum of your japa will take you to a state when japa becomes ajapa. Ajapa means you don't have to make any effort and it goes on continuously. So if you reach that stage, then there is no, you are as good as you got realization. You got my point. So
Yes,
there, sadhana, there's no chance of it stopping. Even when you are sleeping or even when you are not conscious, in the unconscious mind, it goes on repeating. It's like a non-stop process which goes in the background of your personality.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
You want to ask question? Ajay? Yeah, I've unmuted you. Yeah.
Very good talk, Maharaj. Pranam.
Oh.
Just enjoyed it, Maharaj.
Oh, so
There's
nice.
so much effort. I'm just listening to everything.
Okay. I thought you wanted to raise your hand, so I thought you wanted.
I wanted to say my pranam before we leave, Maharaj.
Okay, fine. So shall I take leave or anybody is still interested? Okay.
Okay, pranam.
Yeah, okay, namaste.
Pranam, Maharaj.